Sometimes critics of The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints cite a Ward teaching message from June 1945 to Ward teachers. The claim is the Church expects the members to be mindless robots who just go along with what is told to them. This presentation will review the content of this letter along with a reply from President George Albert Smith. As you can see, the first portion is just an introduction of the duties of a teacher in the Church. Not a whole lot to cover here. This section covers the sustaining of church leaders. A sustaining is not a vote. No ballots are cast, no count is done, and no results are released. In a sustaining action, a member has three options. They can sustain the leader in question, they may oppose, or they just abstain and let the opportunity pass. The Church does not force anyone to any action. If a member sustains the leaders, it is the same as a promise and covenant to follow and abide by the counsel of those leaders. To sustain means to support or bear up. It is difficult to sustain a leader if one stabs the leader in the back if they do or say something they may not agree with. This action opens the door to apostasy, and one can lose the Holy Ghost if they speak evil of the Lord's anointed. This portion suggests driving wedges between church members and leaders has been a common method Satan has used since the beginning of man. It would be no different if an enemy of the U.S. was able to effectively cause division between the U.S. military command and the general soldiers. If they can do that, they score a major victory by causing division in the ranks. This section just reminds people of a statement from Joseph Smith that when people begin to find fault in others and church leaders while thinking themselves righteous, they are on the road to apostasy. This is the main portion that critics have used against the Church. When the leaders speak, the thinking is done. Once direction is given, the matter is over. The conclusion made here is not correct. Obviously there are doctrinal issues that are fixed, but a variety of church policies, programs, and procedures can and do change when there is a need. President George Albert Smith replied to a letter addressed to him in 1945 regarding this statement. The letter reads in part, "The leaflet to which you refer, and from which you quote in your letter, was not prepared by one of our leaders. However, one or more of them inadvertently permitted the paragraph to pass uncensored. By their so doing, not a few members of the Church have been upset in their feelings, and general authorities have been embarrassed. I am pleased to assure you that you are right in your attitude that the passage quoted does not express the true position of the Church. Even to imply that members of the Church are not to do their own thinking is grossly to misrepresent the true ideal of the Church, which is that every individual must obtain for himself a testimony of the truth of the gospel, must, through the redemption of Jesus Christ, work out his own salvation, and is personally responsible to his Maker for his individual acts. The Lord himself does not attempt coercion in his desire and effort to give peace and salvation to his children. He gives the principles of life and true progress, but leaves every person free to choose or to reject his teachings. This plan the authorities of the Church try to follow. The prophet Joseph Smith once said, "I want liberty of thinking and believing as I please." This liberty he and his successors in the leadership of the Church have granted to every other member thereof. On one occasion, in answer to the question by a prominent visitor how he governed his people, the prophet answered, "I teach them correct principles, and they govern themselves." Again, as recorded in the history of the Church, Joseph Smith said further, "If I esteem mankind to be in error, shall I bear them down? No. I will lift them up, and in their own way too, if I cannot persuade them my way is better, and I will not seek to compel any man to believe as I do, only by the force of reasoning, for truth will cut its own way." I cite these few quotations, from many that might be given, merely to confirm your good and true opinion that the Church gives to every man his free agency, and admonishes him always to use the reason and good judgment with which God has blessed him. George Albert Smith. Thank you for your time.